Y'all, it's your boy Easy, and on today's episode of Easy Opens, we're going to be taking a look at the G.I. Joe classified Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander first appeared in G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue number 1 from June of 1982. He was created by Marvel Comics writer Larry Hama. He is the main antagonist of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, and the leader of the terrorist organization Cobra. He is ex-military, ex-used car salesman, and used cash and charisma to win people over to his ideals of toppling big business and the government. So most of that information is from Wikipedia and then my own recollection from reading all of the Larry Hama run of the Marvel Comics line. However, I did read on the Yo Joe forums that this helmeted version of the character is for battle scenarios, whereas you might have seen this character with a hood over his head, and that is for when he's not in battle. So just in case you were wondering. But all that out of the way, this figure comes on the classic G.I. Joe 3 3/4 inch figure box, and that's really cool, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to get this figure free from its plastic prison and see what we think about Cobra Commander. So fresh out the box, I absolutely adore this figure. I'm a huge fan of this line, and I think that they're doing an excellent job replicating G.I. Joe for the 6-inch market, and I have been an advocate for that line since day one and before that. I used to say if 6-inch Joe becomes a reality, then I'm in trouble, and it did a couple years ago, and yeah, it's been hard because so many of these characters are so cool. And Cobra Commander, this version of Cobra Commander specifically, was one I was very eagerly looking forward to. And Hasbro does a great job with their figures. I mean, if you have one, you kind of get a good idea as to what to expect, but there's a lot of detail here, and especially on this figure, like I'm still finding things just looking at it that, like, you know, I've seen this figure a little bit in photos and whatnot, and then just having it in the box looking at it, but now in hand, I'm seeing things that like looking on his back pockets, like he's got pockets sculpted in to his pants on the backside. Like that's wild. So yeah, there's just so much detail here. The blue is just so striking to me. Like they nailed the design in my opinion, because this encapsulates the iconic cartoon version of Cobra Commander, who is arguably one of the essential 80s villains, like in the Mount Rushmore, if you will, of 80s villains. Like this version of Cobra Commander is definitely up there, and I definitely wanted this version all along, and I'm so happy to have him in my collection now. The chrome is just, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a kid from the 80s, and like chrome things and shiny things on plastic toys and stuff just made a world of difference to me for some reason, and still does. And this is no exception. It looks sharp and it's eye-catching. Just the overall paint scheme is really cool. The only gripe that I really have is that I feel like the reds, especially on the Cobra emblem on his chest, should have been a little bit brighter. This one's so dark and muted that you can barely make out what it is. I don't think it's quality. I don't think it's like the paint is like, you know, that they didn't do a good job painting it on. I just think that the color just doesn't pop like I think it should. And so that's kind of disappointing, because the Cobra logo is one of the coolest logos in all of fiction. And I think that, you know, that's a shame that something that should be a very bold statement on his chest is kind of muted. And I kind of hate that. And unfortunately, in my opinion, it's a little too small for me to go in and correct that with like any kind of paint skills that I got. And it would probably look like garbage anyway if I did that. But I don't even think I could pay somebody else to do it. They'd probably have to wash it off and then paint a new one on, which might not be that difficult, but who wants to do that? Like, we buy these figures at this premium price to have everything look the way it is. And I get things happen, but I feel like that's kind of something that, you know, is kind of a detriment to this figure in a way. So I don't know, maybe that's just me, but at the same time, I could make the argument that maybe it's his attempt to be a little bit more subtle with it, so it's not so on Front Street. But then you would say that this guy's running around with a mirror on his face, essentially. So I don't think he's worried about subtlety. But regardless of all that, again, the sculpt looks fantastic. The blues look great. The chrome looks excellent. And then the white bits make it pop so much. And then the lighter blue undershirt and collar really help to like make this figure pop. And I really dig it so much. And I don't know, I'm just so geeked out because like I've always wanted a 6-inch version of this version of Cobra Commander, and I'm just so happy to have it now. But one thing I'm very happy to have, this Cobra Commander comes with 6 interchangeable hands, and one of them happens to be a declarative index finger out pointing hand. And I am ecstatic that they included that because I think most figures should come with an extended index finger pointing hand. And the fact that this one does, I'm so glad because it just adds so much character to this figure. And you'll probably hear me gush about this later in the review. So anyway, he comes with 6 interchangeable hands, a hairdryer style looking pistol, a dagger, a backpack that holds the hairdryer gun, and an action figure stand. All right, now let's take a look at the articulation you're going to get out of Cobra Commander. So starting at the head, you got 360 at the neck. He's got some side-to-side wiggle room. He can look up a decent amount. He can look down quite a bit as well. And then he also has a joint in the neck where it meets the chest. So you get a lot more wiggle room there and a lot more fluid motion there. So that's really cool. Moving on to the arms, he does have a butterfly joint in the shoulder as well as 360 at the shoulder. And a joint there as well for some up and down movement, however you need to use it. And then he's got a 360 swivel at the bicep. He has double jointed elbows. He has a 360 split at the forearm, as well as having a 360 wrist joint. And then a joint in there as well, I believe. I can't see. Yeah, he does. It's on the top part of his hand. Sorry, I had to take it off the camera. But yeah, he's got that there. And then moving on to the chest, he does have an ab crunch, which gets a fairly forward, decent amount of, motion, but articulation. And he can move back quite a bit, so there's a fair amount of motion there. And then he's got 360 at the waist, which is really cool. He's got an excellent split range, which is awesome. I don't know why he would need that, but that's really cool. He's got some swivel in the thigh as well as a thigh cut, which is great. And then he's got double jointed knees. He's got a swivel cut at the ankle, or just right above it. And then he has ankle rockers down at his feet. And if I'm not mistaken, that is all the articulation you're going to get out of Cobra Commander. According to writeups.org, this version of Cobra Commander stands at 5 foot 11 inches tall and weighs around 195 pounds. This figure stands just around 6.5 inches tall and weighs almost 3 ounces. Now let's see how he measures up to some other figures you might have in your collection. Here they are with Hasbro's Star Wars Black Series Darth Vader and the Loyal Subjects Rocketeer. Here they are with Storm Collectibles Sub-Zero and Marvel Legends Wolverine. Here they are with SH Figuarts Kamen Rider Fies and Hasbro's Power Rangers Lightning Collection Mighty Morphin Green Ranger. Here they are with Jada Toys Dalsim and Mega Man. Here they are with NECA's 1987 animated series Donatello and NECA's Return to New York 4-pack Raphael. Here they are with Mattel's New Eternia Skeletor and NECA's 1987 animated series box set Shredder. Here they are with McFarlane's DC Multiverse Clock King and Marvel Select Juggernaut. Here they are with Super 7's TMNT Ultimates Donatello and NECA's knockoff Mirage Comics color bandana Donatello. Here they are with Hasbro's G.I. Joe Classified Baroness and Destro. Here they are with one of the Crimson Twins, either Tomox or Xamot, I can't remember which one is which, and Dr. Mindbender. Here they are with Storm Shadow and Zartan. And here they are with the first release of Cobra Commander in the Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified line, if I'm not mistaken. G.I. Joe is one of those properties where the villains were almost too cool, if you ask me. Like, especially compared to the heroes, in my opinion. It almost made you take into some serious consideration which side you would choose if you had to be on one in real life. And it seems kind of weird because, generally speaking, you're probably one to be like, oh, like I would certainly pick the good guys because they're the good guys. But then again, I mean, I'm a sucker for a gimmick as well as a cool logo. And Cobra has both of those in strides so much better than G.I. Joe ever thought about. And then there's always the old adage that a hero is only as good as his best villain. And so, yeah, that says a lot for G.I. Joe only in comparison with Cobra. And with all of that being said, I still couldn't tell you. I'm pretty sure that I may not have succumbed to the alleged charm that Cobra Commander exudes when he's like captivating his audiences and getting them in through whatever scheme or means that he does. But the fashion sense and just the character in general was always a character that I loved as a kid and even through today. And especially the version of him in his metal reflective helmet. Like, I never really thought about it too much as a kid, but as an adult and as reviewing this figure and reading the comics and watching the TV series again in recent years, I started to realize that it's probably way more terrifying to fight someone who is reflecting your face back at you. And that's got to do something to you psychologically. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm making this up or making too much of it, but I think it's kind of cool and really neat. And besides all that, it looks amazing. Not just because my face is in it, but like just in general, like aesthetically, like it's a really cool look. And I've always dug it. And it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, looks for Cobra Commander. And Hasbro has been killing it with this line, in my opinion. I think they did a fantastic job here yet again. And I am very happy to have this version of this character in my collection. That being said, I do have the older figure that was first released that looks a little bit more ornate, and he's cool, don't get me wrong, but there's something about the simplicity of this uniform that just is, I don't know, there's just something about it. Now, granted, I do have to consider the fact that he wore this predominantly in the early episodes of G.I. Joe, and there's a hefty amount of nostalgia that goes along with this outfit, but still, I'm open to admitting that other things are equally just as cool, but still, I don't think that a lot of his other outfits top this one. Now, I will say that the only thing I think I have an issue with is that I wanted the Cobra emblem to be a little bit brighter. It's too dark, in my opinion, so dark that you can't really even see it. But that's really my only big complaint about this figure. Everything else, articulation-wise, he's great. He's up to all the modern standards that Hasbro's been pumping out, and he's got the pinless joints and everything, which look fantastic. And he's just a great action figure, tons of movement, and I do also love how he works with all the other figures in the G.I. Joe line, which, you know, he's designed to do that. That's what he goes with. And given that his face is covered up, he can kind of like blend in with some of the other action figures pretty well. Like some of the comic Ninja Turtles figures he could probably work with, as well as some of the Marvel superheroes and Power Rangers figures if you needed to for some reason. If G.I. Joe wasn't enough and you need to bring in a Zord or something, who knows? But like, he still kind of works. Now, granted, both Marvel and or Marvel Legends and Power Rangers Lightning Collection were made by Hasbro, so they kind of have some synergy there. But I think he works with a lot of other things too. He's not so distinct, in my opinion, that he's not going to be able to blend in if you are trying to mix and match with some stuff you got in your collection. But, you know, but as far as just him going with G.I. Joe, he goes great. He looks great with the other leaders of Cobra, which I am like very happy about having that on a shelf finally in 6-inch form. That is just I don't know. I'm just so excited about that. That's something I always wanted as a kid. And yeah, now to have that in 6-inch scale is just excellent. And then also, longtime viewers of the channel know that I'm a huge fan of the extended index finger pointing hand, and he comes with one, and it is excellent. I mean, I've kept mine on most of the time since I've done this review, and I'll probably stay on because it's just, I don't know, it's so good, and it goes with him so well, and I love that they included that with him, and I would have been disappointed if they didn't. So with that all being said, if you're a G.I. Joe action figure collector, especially for the classified line, you definitely need to pick this up. Like, this is a no-brainer. Like, this, you probably already have this, so I don't know why you're watching this, but thank you anyway. If you're a fan of 1980s animated series villains and you just want to have a shelf of them, yeah, this one definitely deserves and has earned to be like front and center on that shelf, not just for what he did in the cartoons, but like this as a figure. Absolutely. Or if you're a collector of just blue characters in the sense that they're mostly blue with their whole getup, yeah, he fits that bill pretty nicely, with the exception of maybe his white belt and his black gloves and boots. Or if you're just a fan of action figures that you can see a little bit of yourself in, then I don't think you'll be disappointed at all picking up and looking at Cobra Commander. All right, well, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button. If you want to see more from me, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments, what's your favorite Cobra Commander outfit? Is it this? Is it the Deke one that's, I think, about to come out pretty soon? Or is it another version of him? Is it the hooded one? Do you like the hooded one? I like the hooded one a lot too, but I think I like this one the most. But let me know in the comments what's your favorite. And until then, else time.